AITA for getting upset with my mail for calling my son by the wrong name BC she likes it. My son is 4 months old and my husband and I are completely in love with his name, Brooks. It's strong, simple, and exactly what we wanted for him. But lately my MIL has been driving me absolutely insane over it. She's taken to calling him Brooklyn. Yes, Brooklyn, a completely different name and frankly one that's overwhelmingly used for girls. She says she likes the name better and thinks it suits him more. I'm sorry, but what? Here's the thing. MAL lives across the country, so thankfully she doesn't have the opportunity to call him this ridiculous nickname to his face yet. But the audacity is still there. My husband and I have already told her, more than once I might add, that his name is Brooks, not Brooklyn. He's our son, we named him, and we're not okay with her casually deciding to rebrand him like he's her personal project. My husband even explained to her that not only is it not his name, but Brooklyn is heavily associated with girls. You'd think that would have been the end of it, right? Wrong. Cut to this week. We just received a box of Christmas gifts from her in the mail, and when I opened them, my blood pressure shot through the roof. On the gift for Brooks, she had written, "To Brooklyn," yes, with a smug little smiley face next to it, as if to say, I know what I'm doing, and I'm doubling down. I'm livid. Like, who does that? It feels so disrespectful on so many levels. It's not just about the name, it's about her complete disregard for us as his parents. I know some people might say, oh, just let it go. She's a grandma, she's excited. But to me, this feels like a boundary issue, plain and simple. She's not just being cute or quirky, she's outright ignoring our wishes. My husband is equally pissed, thank God, so at least I'm not dealing with this alone. He plans to call her and address it, again. But this is all still pretty fresh, so we're figuring out how to approach it without completely losing our cool. A little more context. We rent our house from MIL and FIL, so going no contact or anything drastic isn't exactly on the table right now. I also don't want to blow this up into a huge family drama, especially over Christmas. But I'm seriously struggling to keep my annoyance in check. This woman has always been a bit opinionated, let's say. But this feels different. It feels personal. For what it's worth, I know the name Brooks isn't super common, but it's definitely not unheard of either. According to some baby name site I checked, mynamestats.com, Brooks is used 94% of the time for boys, while Brooklyn is used 99% of the time for girls. So it's not like she's accidentally calling him something similar. No, this is deliberate. And the kicker? When we picked Brooks, we anticipated that some people might mistakenly call him Brooke on occasion, which we were prepared to correct. But this isn't a mistake. This is MIL deciding she knows better than us what our son should be called. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for being so upset about this? Should I just let it go and chalk it up to MIL being MIL? Or is it valid to feel like this is a line she's crossed? I'm open to advice because right now I'm one condescending nickname away from losing it. Update 1, 2 weeks after the original post. First off, thank you to everyone who took the time to comment and share their thoughts on my original post. I wasn't expecting it to blow up the way it did, but it's been both comforting and eye-opening to hear that I'm not overreacting. Or at least that I'm not alone in thinking this is a bigger issue than just a name. Now for the update, my husband and I finally had the dreaded conversation with MIL. We decided to tackle it together on a video call because it felt like the most direct way to address this without the potential for miscommunication over text or email. Let me tell you, it did not go as we'd hoped. We started off politely but firmly, reiterating that our son's name is Brooks, and we don't want him being called Brooklyn. My husband, bless him, took the lead and explained that while we understand she might have her own preferences or feelings about names, this isn't up for debate. He even emphasized how much we appreciate her love for our son and how we want her to have a close, positive relationship with him. It was all very measured, very calm. Her reaction? Let's just say it went south fast. She immediately got defensive, claiming we were overreacting and blowing this out of proportion. She said that Brooklyn is just a cute nickname and that we were being too rigid about the whole thing. Then she hit us with the classic, I'm his grandmother and I have the right to call him what I want. At that point, my husband calmly but firmly pushed back, saying that as his parents, we have the final say in what he's called, period. And this is where things took a turn I wasn't expecting. MIL then said something along the lines of, well, I just think you're making a mistake. Like, Brooklyn has always been a special name to me, and I don't understand why you wouldn't want to honor that. Cue the awkward silence. My husband asked her what she meant, and that's when she dropped the bombshell. Apparently, Brooklyn was the name she had picked out for a baby girl she miscarried years ago, before my husband was born. Look, I'm not heartless. Hearing that made me pause. I can absolutely understand why that name might hold deep emotional meaning for her. But at the same time, that doesn't give her the right to impose it on our son, especially when we've made it crystal clear that it's not okay with us. We expressed our sympathies for her loss and acknowledged how hard that must have been for her. My husband even said he could understand why the name might feel special to her, but that doesn't change the fact that Brooks is his name, and we're not comfortable with her using Brooklyn as some kind of substitute. Instead of understanding, she doubled down. She accused us of being disrespectful to her feelings and said that we were invalidating her grief by refusing to consider her perspective. The conversation ended on a sour note, with MIL saying she needed time to think and abruptly logging off the call. My husband and I were left sitting there, frustrated and honestly a little heartbroken. We've always known MIL can be headstrong and opinionated, but this level of pushback feels like a deeper issue than just a name. It's about boundaries and respect, two things that now feel very much in question. And then, because apparently one uncomfortable conversation wasn't enough, MIL followed up the next day with a long, rambling email to my husband. She essentially rehashed the entire conversation, but this time she went further. She asked us to reconsider Brooks' name, arguing that it's not too late to change it and that Brooklyn would be a more meaningful choice for the family. She even suggested we could use Brooks as a middle name instead. I'm not joking, she actually wrote that. Reading that email felt like a gut punch. It wasn't just the suggestion of changing his name, which was absurd enough on its own. It was the way she framed it as though our decision was somehow selfish or thoughtless. She implied that by not choosing Brooklyn, we were ignoring an opportunity to honor the family and her personal history. My husband, to his credit, shut that down immediately. He replied politely but firmly, saying that this isn't up for discussion and that her continued attempts to push this are only causing unnecessary tension. Now, we're left trying to figure out how to move forward from here. The whole situation has me feeling incredibly anxious. I don't want this to turn into some ongoing feud, but I also don't want to back down on something that feels so fundamentally important. My husband and I are a united front on this, which helps, but the tension with MIL is already starting to feel like a weight hanging over us. And let's not forget that we're living in a house owned by her and Phil, which adds another layer of complication to an already messy situation. Update 2, 1 month after the original post. So, I promised an update and here it is. Buckle up because things have only gotten more complicated over the past month. After we told Mill in no uncertain terms that we were not changing our son's name and that Brooks was here to stay, we figured that would be the end of it. Well, we couldn't have been more wrong. At first, things seemed like they were calming down. We didn't hear much from Mill for a few weeks after our conversation. I thought maybe she was just processing everything, or maybe she realized we weren't going to budge. But then, during one of our regular video calls, which we've been doing every couple of weeks so she can see Brooks growing up, things took a turn. It started out like any other call. She asked about our lives, how Brooks was doing, and we made small talk about the holidays coming up. Everything seemed normal until she casually slipped in a comment about how some families are just so out of touch with tradition these days. It was subtle, but I could tell she was digging at us, and then she dropped it. I guess it's just hard for me to accept that you don't even want to honor any family history or names. It's like you're deliberately pushing away everything we've built as a family. It felt like a jab, honestly. The way she said it made me feel like we were the ones in the wrong. I tried not to let it get to me, but I could see my husband's face tense up too. He immediately stepped in, trying to explain that this was never about rejecting family tradition. Brooks is a name we both chose, and it's what feels right for us as a family. But Emiel wasn't having it. She just brushed him off and said that we clearly didn't understand the importance of carrying on the family legacy. The conversation went around in circles for a while. Every time we tried to assert our decision, Emiel would spin it to make it sound like we were disrespecting her. Disrespecting family, disrespecting tradition. It was exhausting. My husband, after a long back and forth, finally said something that I think really rattled her. If you can't respect our decision on this, it's going to make it harder for us to have a relationship going forward. We're not going to let this go, and neither should you. And then that shut her up for a minute, but it didn't end the conversation. Instead, she got more passive-aggressive. From then on, every call had at least one little jab. Sometimes it was about our choice of names, other times it was about the way we're raising Brooks. Like when she told me that I should make sure he's not being spoiled by too much attention. Or when she'd make a remark like, "It's too bad some people don't believe in the value of family history anymore." It wasn't even just about the name anymore. It was like she was using every call as an opportunity to criticize the way we were living our lives. It felt like she was subtly reminding us that she thought we were doing everything wrong. It got to the point where I had to mute myself sometimes just to keep from saying something I'd regret. But the real bombshell came about a week ago. We got an email from MIL telling us that she planned to visit us soon. She had booked her flight and was planning to stay for a week. She made it sound like a casual visit at first, just wanting to spend time with the baby, but we all knew what this was about. She was coming, and she was going to make sure we knew how wrong we were about Brooks's name in person. I could feel the tension rising already, and honestly, I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, we haven't seen her in person since Christmas last year, and even then, it wasn't the best experience, but now, I can feel the storm brewing. My husband and I had a long talk after we read the email. We both agreed that it's going to be really uncomfortable, but we also knew we had to set even clearer boundaries while she's here. We can't let her keep pushing us around. I've had enough of the passive-aggressive comments, and I'm not going to let her think she can come into our home and manipulate us into doing things her way just because she's the grandma. But here's the kicker. After everything that's happened, I don't know what to expect. I'm dreading the idea of her arriving and starting in on the Brooklyn thing again, but I'm also hoping that maybe, just maybe, she'll surprise us and back off. I've been trying to prepare myself for whatever is coming, but there's only so much you can do when you know someone is walking into your home with a chip on their shoulder. I'm just hoping it doesn't turn into a full-blown battle. On the bright side, my husband and I are more united than ever. He's been incredible through all of this, and we're on the same page when it comes to how we're going to handle things. He's the one who pointed out that if we let ML dictate things now, it'll only get worse as Brooks gets older. He doesn't want our son growing up thinking it's okay for people to walk all over him just because they have family tradition or history on their side. It's a tough road ahead, but at least we're in this together. So that's where we're at right now. MEL is coming to visit soon, and while I'm preparing myself for the worst, I'm also hoping that we can make it through without things escalating further. We'll see. I'll update again once she's here and we've had a chance to talk things through, or more likely deal with the fallout. Thanks again to everyone for your support. I seriously can't tell you how much it's helped me get through some of the toughest parts of this. Update 3, 6 weeks after the original post. Well, it's been 6 weeks since my last update, and things have predictably gotten even more complicated. MIL has finally arrived for her visit. Spoiler alert, it hasn't been a smooth ride. She got here last week, and from the moment she stepped foot into our home, I could tell we were in for a rough time. Honestly, I thought it would be awkward, but I didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. I thought maybe, after all the tension over the name, we'd have a chance to ease into a more positive dynamic, but no. Mile came in like a whirlwind and immediately started taking over. For context, my husband and I have a very set routine for Brooks. He's still a baby, but we've got a good rhythm going. We've worked hard to establish a sleep schedule, feeding times, and general daily routines that work for us. MIL, however, didn't seem to care about any of that. It's like she walked in and assumed her way was the only way, and everything we've been doing with Brooks was somehow wrong or inferior. It started with little things at first. She'd try to feed him at times that didn't align with his usual routine, like insisting on giving him a bottle when he wasn't hungry yet, or when it was too close to his nap time. When I gently reminded her that he's usually on a set schedule, she would act like I was being difficult or controlling. "Oh, he'll be fine, he's just a baby," she'd say, as if I didn't know what my baby needed. But it didn't stop there. MIL also started criticizing the way we were raising him. She'd make comments about how, back in my day, we didn't worry so much about schedules. Babies just fit into your life. Or, "Why are you making him sleep so much? He's too young for all that napping." It was like every decision we'd made for Brooks was under scrutiny, and she was doing everything in her power to fix things. Then the name issue came up again. Of course it did. The whole time she was here, she kept calling him Brooklyn to his face. Not in passing, not in some offhand way. Every time she spoke to him, she used that name. I kept trying to gently remind her, but each time I did, her response was colder, more dismissive. "Oh, it's just a nickname. You're making too much of a big deal out of it," she'd say. The tone was the worst part. She wasn't just using the wrong name, she was making it sound like I was being unreasonable for wanting to respect the name we gave our son. I won't lie, this went on for days, and every time it happened, I could feel the frustration building inside me. But I didn't want to make a scene. I wanted to keep things civil for my husband's sake and for the sake of keeping the peace. So, I bit my tongue. But let me tell you, it was hard. Finally, after days of this, I had enough. One evening, as she was cooing at Brooks, calling him Brooklyn yet again, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I quietly said, MIL, we've talked about this. His name is Brooks, not Brooklyn. I tried to stay calm, but honestly, I was shaking with irritation. I wanted to make sure she understood that I wasn't going to let this slide anymore. Her reaction? Absolutely unexpected. She snapped back with a tone that sent my blood pressure through the roof. You're really going to make an issue out of a nickname? I've raised 3 kids. I know what I'm doing. You don't have to disrespect me in front of my grandchild like this. It's just a name. I was speechless for a moment. I could feel the walls closing in around me. She was so dismissive, so condescending, and all I was asking for was basic respect. It was like she couldn't understand why we were holding our ground. I could see my husband tense up from across the room, and he immediately stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. He told her that we weren't trying to disrespect her, but that we needed to make sure we were all on the same page when it came to how we raised Brooks. He also mentioned, for what felt like the 100th time, that Brooks's name was not up for debate no matter how much she might like Brooklyn. But MIL was having none of it. She went silent for a while and then finally said, well, if you two can't respect me and my experience, then I guess I'm not welcome here. It was like a punch to the gut. She literally said that. She went on to accuse us of pushing her out of our lives and making her feel like she didn't matter in our family. I could feel myself getting upset, but I didn't want to escalate things further. I looked at my husband, and it was clear he was just as shocked by her outburst. He tried to explain that we didn't mean to make her feel unwelcome, but the damage was already done. MIL was visibly hurt, and no matter what we said, it seemed like we couldn't make things right. The rest of the evening was strained. We ate dinner in silence, and after that, MIL retreated to her room. The tension was unbearable, and I'm not gonna lie, it felt like we were walking on eggshells. This whole situation, which started as a small disagreement over a name, had blown up into something way bigger, and I don't know how to fix it. Update 4, 2 months after the original post. It's been 2 months since my last update, and honestly, I wish I could say things have calmed down, but they haven't. In fact, they've gotten worse. After Meal's visit, we thought things might settle down with time, but instead, we've found ourselves deeper in a mess than ever before. After the visit, I was hoping that some space would give Mill the chance to reflect on everything that happened and maybe, just maybe, come to terms with the fact that we weren't going to back down on the name. But instead of a peaceful resolution, we got something that completely blindsided us. A letter. MIL sent us a long, angry letter about a week ago, and reading it was like having the rug pulled out from under us. She poured all her frustrations onto the paper, blaming us for everything that's gone wrong between us. She expressed how deeply hurt she was by the way we disrespected her during her visit, and how we pushed her out of Brooke's life. It was like she completely ignored all the times we tried to explain ourselves, all the times we tried to compromise. According to her, we were the ones in the wrong for standing firm on our boundaries. The worst part, she doubled down on the name issue. MIL wrote that she was still upset we hadn't honored her by choosing Brooklyn for our son. She even said that she could no longer support our family if we refused to consider her wishes. It was like a slap in the face. She threatened to cut off all contact with us and stop being a part of our lives entirely unless we changed our attitude and reconsidered the name. And not just the name, but everything. How we were raising Brooks, how we were shutting her out, and how we were alienating her by not letting her have a say in our decisions. I have to admit, reading that letter left me in a state of shock. It felt like an ultimatum, a demand that we bend to her will or lose her forever. And the worst part was that she framed it as though we were the ones being unreasonable, not her. The way she twisted everything to make us feel guilty was manipulative and hurtful. My husband was devastated by the letter. He's been in such an emotional tug of war over this whole situation, trying to keep the peace between me and his mother. He's always been very close to his mom, so seeing her threaten to cut us off has left him feeling completely torn. He doesn't want to lose her, but at the same time, he knows where our priorities lie, with our family and with our son. He's frustrated and hurt, but he also feels trapped. It's like no matter what he does, he's the one stuck in the middle, trying to keep everyone happy while also standing up for what's right for us as a family.
Nope.
We've been discussing what to do next, but to be honest, we don't really know where to go from here. We've talked about seeing a therapist to help mediate the situation, but we're also wary about whether MIL would even be open to that. She's been so adamant about having her way, and I'm not sure she'd be willing to work through things with a professional, especially if she feels like we're forcing her into it. But we both agree that something has to change. We can't keep going on like this, with her sending ultimatums and trying to control our family dynamic. We need to find a way to either set firm boundaries that she respects or come to some kind of resolution that doesn't involve us being constantly in conflict. The whole situation has made me question whether we'll ever be able to have a healthy relationship with her again. My husband has expressed how much he wants things to work out, but at this point, it feels like we're at an impasse. There's only so much we can do to try and keep the peace when the other person isn't willing to meet us halfway. We're still processing everything, but I wanted to update you all because I really value the advice and support I've gotten through this. I'm hoping that with some professional help, we can navigate this mess, but right now, I'm just really sad and frustrated. I want to protect my family and my son, and I want to believe that there's a way through this that doesn't involve cutting Emil out of our lives completely, but at the same time, I can't keep allowing her to try and manipulate us into doing what she wants. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold, but for now, I'm just trying to breathe through it all and take it one day at a time.